Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. As I promised, we were going to get back into doing some diagramming today. Now, before we go into the next sentence type, I do want to do a little bit of reviewing on the subject predicate sentence type. So, type 1, as we said, is subject and predicate. And no matter what you have, to have a complete sentence in English, you must at least start with these two. If you don't have these two, you do not have a sentence in English. You have a fragment, you have an exclamation, but it's not something that's a complete sentence. Now, why is this important for our purposes? For our purposes, this is important because if you do not have a complete sentence, then you do not have something where you can judge whether this is true or false. You are left with, just a statement that is unable to be put into really a logical framework. And with dealing with analysis of both philosophy and literature, you need to be able to make complete logical statements in order to get your ideas across or to understand ideas someone else is trying to put across. So, for example, example of this type of sentence. Okay. We have the sentence, Brian walked slowly down the street. And I apologize for my handwriting. My handwriting has always been terrible. But when you're looking at all these words, you have to know what words you could ignore at first. Now, this is still just a subject-predicate sentence, but we have some modifiers. We have an adverb and we have a prepositional phrase. So when you're looking for the subject and predicate, you always start the same way. You draw your two lines like that, your horizontal line, and then cut it in half with the small vertical line. And before we look for the subject and predicate, we can think about what we can ignore. Well, slowly is an adverb, which means it will not be the subject or the predicate. Down the street is a prepositional phrase. And prepositional phrases will never be the subject or predicate. The exception to them being the subject is if you have the name of a book or a movie or a song that is a prepositional phrase. For example, what is it? On the waterfront is a prepositional phrase, but it's the name of a movie, and so that could be a subject. But this is not the title of anything, so this will not be a subject. So what we're left with then is Brian and walked. And of course the subject is going to be a noun or a pronoun. So we're going to have Brian as the subject, and then walked as the predicate. And then you ask yourselves, before you go any further, do I have a complete subject and a complete predicate? And the answer is yes. Brian is a complete subject, doesn't need anything else. Walked is a complete predicate. If you had walking, it would not be a complete sentence because you would need a word that gave you the tense with walking, like was walking, is walking, will be, etc. So we do have a complete sentence, so we can go further along. Slowly describes how he walked, and so you're going to put slowly under there. Down the street tells you where he walked, and so it also modifies walked. So remember, with a prepositional phrase, you always have your preposition and your object of the preposition. So down is the preposition, street is the object of the preposition, and the modifies street. And we have taken care of every word in the sentence Therefore, we have diagrammed the entire sentence. It would help if I erased it with the right thing. This is the difficulty of doing things live. You don't have the pause and do over, but I don't like to do videos that are too polished because this is not the experience you would get in a classroom. Your professor can't pause the class, re-say what he said, and then start again. So in a lot of ways, I try to keep this the way it is in a classroom environment, but also a little less formal and intimidating. I want these lessons to be things that people can enjoy without feeling overwhelmed. Now, when we move on to the next type of sentence type 2, this is the subject, predicate, subjective complement. And as I do these diagrams, you're going to hear me keep repeating these terms: subject, predicate, subjective complement, because this is going to help you with pronoun usage. So if you're using a pronoun in any of these places, that will be a subjective pronoun. You would select from the subjective list. So you would use I instead of me. Me is objective. The nice thing about English is that you is both singular and plural, subjective and objective, so you're never going to get that one wrong. The same with it. It is both subjective and objective. But I, he, she, they, and we are the subjective pronouns. Me, they, or I should say me, him, her, us, and them are the objective pronouns. So keep in mind what these are called, and it will help you with selecting the right pronouns. Now remember, we've also talked about prepositional phrases, which have a preposition and an object to the preposition. And so whenever you have one of those, that is going to be an objective pronoun if a pronoun goes there. Okay? So I will keep repeating the names, and there is a reason for that. It does make sense. Okay. So for this one, you have a predicate that is a linking verb or passive voice, which means what it's doing is it's connecting these two things. So this subjective complement is either going to be renaming or modifying the subject. If it's modifying it, it is modifying a subject, which means it needs to be an adjective. If it is renaming it and it is a pronoun, it needs to be a subjective pronoun because it's renaming a subject. So, all right, I'm going to give you a question here real quick. Here's the sentence. She felt, should it be bad or badly? And there's a difference in meaning depending on which one you use, because bad is the adjective form. It's describing she. It's telling you how she felt. Felt is a passive voice. It's not active. She's not going up to something and feeling it. So that's why this is a type 2 sentence. Badly is an adverb, which means it would be modifying felt and come down under this. Now, if it's modifying felt, the meaning of this sentence is there's something wrong with her ability to feel. She can't feel things the way she's supposed to. She does it badly. But that's not what the sentence should mean. You want this to be modifying she. So we always start, no matter what sentence type it is, the same way. We draw our two lines. She is the subject. And again, this is not her felt bad. And you have to get rid of the idea of sound. You know, if I say, why don't we use her felt bad? And your first response might be, well, it sounds wrong. Sound is completely irrelevant in grammar for the most part. The only time it's relevant is using a or an in front of a vowel sound or a consonant sound. Other than that, sound really has nothing to do with grammar. It has to do with function. This is she, not her, because this is the subject, so we need the subjective form. Felt is the predicate, and that is a complete predicate. Now, to show that this comes back to this, what we're going to do is draw a backslash line. And we're going to put bad right here. So now this sentence is completely diagrammed. We know that it's not badly, because otherwise it would have been diagrammed differently. You know, if a sentence has a different diagram, that means it has a different meaning. If badly would have gone under here, and again, that would have been telling you something about her ability to feel, not about her state of being. Okay, next sentence. Gina is very tall. We're going to do this the same way every time. No matter how complex the sentences get, go to your beginning. Draw your two lines. So our subject of this, we know is not going to be very, because very is a modifier. We know it's not going to be tall. Tall is also a modifier. So Gina is the subject. Is the predicate, and then is a linking verb, and remember, if it's passive voice or linking, it's bringing this idea back to modify this. So we're going to put the backslash. Tall is what Gina is. Now, if you think about what does very modify, very modifies tall, which means you are going to have it here. It's going to go under it. An adjective modifies a noun or a pronoun. An adverb modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. So this is actually an adverb because it modifies an adjective. And I hope you don't mind the old school, but I prefer to do it old school on this kind of chalkboard. Okay. All right, so we have a little bit longer sentence here, and you'll notice I added a conjunction, and I'm going to show you in a minute what you do with a conjunction. Everything needs to be on its own line. You can't just pack two words on the same line, because you're really splitting everything up so that you can represent it visually. So when we go to diagram this, we start with our two lines. And then we know the word the is a modifier. Ancient is an adjective. Sagging is an adjective. And is a conjunction. So that just leaves, and also red is an adjective. So that just leaves house and was. So house is our subject. Was is our predicate. Was is a linking verb, so we do the backslash. And this is important to make sure it's a backslash, because when we get to the next part of type of sentence, it's going to be a line that goes straight up and down. We won't get into that today, but just get used to doing them, and thinking about them the way they should be. So, what was the house? It was two different things. So when you have two different things that have to go on one line, you have to split the line. So you're going to draw this little split, and one of them will go on the top, ancient, and the other will go on the bottom, sagging. And what connects these two? We're going to use dotted lines to show conjunctions. That's how they're going to go onto diagrams. So the word and is going to go in between. Now, the modifies house. It's the house. And we're capitalizing it because it is the first word in the sentence. And I'll show you in the next sentence why we capitalize whatever comes first, because this is how you will distinguish between a question and a statement. They're going to diagram the same, but there'll be a difference where the capitalized word falls. Okay, so the modifies house, red modifies house, and we've taken care of every word in that, and so we have finished the diagram. I wanted to show you these two side by side because they will diagram the same way. The only difference is going to be what word is capitalized within the diagram. So let's go with the one we know first. There are two lines. We're going to do he was ill. He is the subject. Was is the predicate. You draw your backslash line, and ill describes him. So that's the subject complement. Now with this one, you're going to do the same two lines. This doesn't become the subject just because it moved to the front. It's still the predicate. So the subject is still he. The predicate is was. It's a linking verb. And the subject complement is ill. So you can see they diagram the exact same way. You don't diagram punctuation, but the fact that I capitalized he in this one tells you this was a statement. The fact that I capitalized was in this one tells you it's a question. Now, even if this was, a spoken sentence, and he said he was ill, and then they, had the rising inflection at the end, it would still diagram this way. That wouldn't change the way that you diagram it. This one I'm about to give you is one of the reasons that with grammar you don't go by sound. Okay, sound, if you were picking between these two, you would go with this one. And this is the one that most people would use in dialect. But technically this is incorrect in standard English. If someone you knock on the door and someone says, "Who is it?" you say, "It is me," or "It's me." This is the way we speak in dialect, in common language. but technically this is incorrect. Because this is the subject predicate, which is a linking verb, and the subject complement needs to be in the same form as the subject, which means you need the subjective form. So the subject in this is it, the predicate is, you do your backslash, and then I is the subject complement. When you get used to saying these names over and over again, you get used to, think of this as a puzzle. This is a puzzle place, and only an S piece is going to fit in this place. It has to be a subjective piece. This is a puzzle piece. Only a subjective piece is going to fit in this place. I don't know if you can hear or not in the background, my dog is barking. He wants something. Okay, they were mean to me. This is still the same type of sentence because you have this prepositional phrase, so that's not going to be part of the subject or the predicate because it's not a title. So when we diagram it, they is the subject, and it's they because it's the subject, not them. We wouldn't say them were mean to me. Not because it sounds wrong, but because that puzzle piece doesn't fit in that place. You need an S piece to go into an S place. Were is a linking verb, and so this, mean, describes how they were. And where was that meanness directed? See, that's what happens when you work live. It modifies your predicate because it tells it where it was. So to is the preposition, me is the object of the preposition. It's not to I because that's the object of the preposition. It's an O place. It needs an objective pronoun if you have a pronoun. Okay, that was a lot to go through for today, so I'm going to break off there. I hope all of you are getting something out of this. These will become more complicated because we have 3 more simple sentence types we get into, and then we'll start combining complete sentences with partial sentences, or 2 complete sentences together, or 2 complete with 1 or more partial sentences. So these can get pretty big. I used to have my students diagram the opening sentence from Out of the Cradle Endlessly Rocking. And I don't know if any of you have ever read that poem by Whitman, but the entire paragraph is 1 sentence. And it's a bunch of prepositional phrases, it's a bunch of modifiers, and so everything is all together just 1 sentence. Okay, I hope all of you are doing well. I hope all of you are staying safe, and I will see you again very soon. Have a good night.